Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the What's in My Head podcast. Today, I am joined by Scott Underwood, an artist that Big Jim had no problem saying he hated so much because he was so fucking good. But it's a good thing, right? That's the first thing. You looked at me like I was really, really shocked, like I was going to say some shit that we shouldn't be said.
Whoa, man.
But Big Jim was like, I fucking hated work with him. I'm like, why? And I was like, because he was so much better than everybody else. He was like, he broke his hand, his dominant hand, and he was just drawing shit with his left hand, and it still looked better than half the shit I was doing. You got so much as far as like recognition from not only fans but your peers, man, as being one of the best artists anybody's ever worked for. And keeping on that point, man, I really wanted to know, what was that first creative spark that kind of got you into drawing, and how you ended up doing the career that you're doing now?
Well, I always drew as far back as I can recall. So there was always an inherent part of what I was doing. Now, growing up, I kind of thought that I'd get into comic strips because I would anxiously read the comic strips every day in the newspaper. But even by the time just before I started at AKA, like comic strips were dying already, and so I got into storyboarding instead, which is kind of a close cousin of comic strips. So that's kind of how I ended up in that area of it. I mean, it also would have depended if what the jobs happened to have been when I got into the industry. That would probably be where I would have ended up. It so happened it was storyboards, but I'm sure if I, went for animation or something, maybe I would still be doing that. But just because it was like a kind of a product of that time in my life, like, I don't know, I guess I'll do this.
What I love about, I don't want to assume you're Canadian, correct? I
Yeah.
know, I knew it was, but I always have to throw it out there. You guys are some of the most humblest people I've ever met in my life. I have it with Jono all the time. I talk to Jono and he's like, yeah, it was good. It was okay. I'm like, Jono, you were on the longest running cartoon on Cartoon Network history. I was like, it's okay to break your own arm, patting yourself on the back at least once, Jono. Can I get you to do it once? You guys are some of the most down-to-earth and humble people I've ever met in my life. Because if this was me, I'd be screaming it from the rooftops. I did this shit that everybody loved that lasted so long. I mean, like I said, I absolutely love the show. I always wait for the filleting at the end of the episode, telling you guys how much I loved the show and how great it was. But I, like I said, man, thank you once again for coming on. So when you went through comic strips, was it just you in the funny papers you were watching, or were you an avid reader as far as comic book go? Or
Oh yeah, I loved comic books. Marvel Comics was part of a staple thing that I grew up on. And I always got Spider-Man and usually 5 for $1 comics at the flea market was my thing. But it was already distinctively Marvel. I didn't like DC growing up at all, so it was always the Marvel stuff. But in terms of like comic strips, like I obviously Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield. Everyone loves Garfield at some point in their life. But yeah, comic strips. And I never really got too far into the comic strip before I went to film school and just went with animation. I always liked animation too, so it wasn't a drastic departure by any means.
yeah. So what was it about Marvel that you liked so much and you just didn't like DC? I mean, you can't really see it in the back. I mean, here, I'll show you real quick. But I mean, those are all the trades and stuff down there. I'm primarily a DC guy, and you can see all the Ninja Turtle shit. So there's a lot of indie stuff in there too. But what was it specifically about Marvel that you liked so much compared to DC?
It might have just been that opinion handed over to me from my dad, who was also a comic collector. And I can't quite remember if that's the case, but I always just found DC comics really boring. And so, because there was Batmans and Supermans lying around the house too. Like my dad had hundreds and hundreds of comics. So I did have access, and it was just like, yeah, Batman, he's just a normal guy. He's just really good. No, I didn't like it. I liked, Power Man and Iron Fist. I remember having a lot of those, and Speedball, the Masked Marvel. That was good stuff. And then the first DC comic I finally got was, I'm like, oh, I have to get this comic. I have to. It was because it was Superman and the Quick Bunny together at last.
Superman and the Quick Bunny.
Yeah, the Quick Bunny from Nestle's Quick
Oh,
chocolate milk powder. They were in their own comic together.
Man, talk about a crossover.
Right. Finally, DC. Finally, DC's doing something good.
That's what got you, the Nesquik Bunny and Superman, huh?
Oh yeah.
That's a fan. I got to look at that one. I mean, I never knew they had that quite huge of a crossover.
It's big. one issue.
That's it. One issue. That's all it took,
yeah,
huh? But nonetheless, man, when I go and look at whoever I have on, it always comes up as far as like where you guys got your start, and you go and talk about. I love drawing from such a young age, and a lot of it had to do with comic strips, and that kind of evolved into animation when you went to film school. You started doing more animation for a little while, and then you bounce back and forth here and there. When you were going through film school, did AKA come up right at the end, or were you still doing film school, still attending film school?
No, it was. I didn't even have a clue that AKA existed throughout film school. And even after I graduated from film school, still didn't know. It was only when I finally started looking for a job after film school that I was at the school picking up like a VHS of my student film, and one of the instructors there was like, "Hey, you should apply down the street here at AKA Cartoon." I'd never heard of it. Oh, okay. So I went and I applied there. I got a test, storyboard test, and yeah, that's about it. I didn't really even apply that many other places. Me and a friend of mine decided to go for pizza instead. So threw the rest of my resumes in the trash. Yeah, in those days, there was no recycling bins on the streets.
Man, you were living on the edge.
Yeah, well, I didn't really care about, like, I wasn't anxious to get into the industry or anything, but I did need to make some money, so that's where I just started applying at a couple places in town in Vancouver, and it so happened that AKA was one of them, but I had never heard of it.
Now, when you said you were doing a test board, what does that entail? Do you just go in there and you draw their characters at that time, or they just give you a whole bunch of different stuff to really draw and flesh out?
It was already for Ed, and Eddy, because that series was just starting at AKA, and so the test entailed a paragraph of. It was kind of based on the Ed Touchables cartoon, and we were just given that paragraph and a storyboard template, and you're like, okay, well, let's see what you can do. And so we, as the test doer, were to interpret that paragraph in whichever way we saw fit. Like, it wasn't a script, it was just a paragraph that we had to embellish upon. And so that's what they were looking for, to see if they wanted, if you wanted you on board, what you could bring to the table from that outline.
Now, is this something you would have to do while you're there, or would you take it back home with you?
Yeah, you take it home because you're not hired. They don't know if they want you around yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, you take it home, and then I think I had a week to do it, if I remember correctly. And then I just brought it back in, and then wait until they gave feedback or whatever. And I was lucky enough that Danny liked the test enough that I got in there. And that test is what Big Jim would have referred to, because that test I did with my left hand, because I had fractured my drawing hand at that time.
That is fucking insane. I can't even tie my shoes with my left hand. And you're sitting here, like I said in the opening of the show, the longest running Cartoon Network show, you drew with your left fucking hand on a tryout. That is,
I will say it was pretty crappy. Like it's
it's
not
good
good.
enough to get a fucking job though, man. I mean, that's got to say some shit. It just goes to show a testament of how great you are. And one thing that always came up whenever I started reaching out to a lot of the artists, because I started with the writers first, and then it kind of dovetailed into, hey man, get this guy on, hey, get this guy on, get this guy on. Jono specifically, and Mike as well, they said that you never stopped drawing, whether you were in a meeting, whether you were talking to somebody, listening to somebody, you were always just go, 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 go. Is that something you do out of just, I don't want to say necessity, but is it like, usually I'll sit there and I shake my leg, I bounce my leg. It's just a habit that I do. Is it the same concept as far as you, like, I'm just going to sit here and draw some shit?
Yeah, pretty much. There's like paper and pencils all over the house here. And just whenever I end up in the other room, and then I'll just start drawing, nothing good, whatever. Just, yeah, that's just how time passes for me, just drawing.
Now,
Doodling.
are you 100% pen and paper or pencil and paper still, or do you do?
No, I do most of the work on Cintiq, and ever ever since the end of Ed, and Eddy, it's pretty much all been on Cintiq. So it's been a while, but yeah, like I still love drawing on paper. So like that's sketchbooks everywhere and just scraps of paper, just drawing on them.
Now, when you made the switch over after the Ed Boys, man, was it? I don't want to say a learning curve because obviously when you're doing anything new, it's going to be a learning curve. But did you feel like you left or missed a whole bunch of steps in between from pen and paper to doing everything digital? Or
Oh yeah, I did. I did miss the pen and pencil and paper stuff for sure. Absolutely. And it was only as that learning curve was progressing and you got into the quick way to resize your character, that was helpful in getting into actually doing it on the computer, because that was the worst part of the pencil and paper, is having to go to the photocopier to reduce Ed by 10%. You drew him too big there, and you have to do that throughout this scene. Oh, you drew Eddy a little bit too small though, so you might want to raise him 5% or shift over the background. Okay, go to the photocopier. But part of the photocopier experience was good too. But yeah, definitely a lot less time resizing, that kind of stuff.
so one thing that always comes up whenever I talk to you guys is post-it notes that Danny would leave people, whether it be you drew it, it looks like you drew it with your ass, no soul, find a new job, insert, whatever breakdown to build you back up comment. I think they're fucking hysterical, but it's because I'm on the outside looking in. I can only imagine how depressing some of these might have been. But one thing I always like asking is you guys to relive your trauma. Do you remember one specific post-it note that might have stuck out the most to you, or one that you always keep in the back pocket?
There's a couple. So the first was early on, season one Eds, and I was still fresh at drawing these guys and fresh out of school, still working on the craft, and I got a note basically saying, "Who is this, Casper the Friendly Ghost or whatever?" And it was this panel of Jimmy that just looked like kind of standard cute Casper garbage. So yeah, I got that note. Um, and I'm sure there was many more, but I can't recall them. That one stuck out in my mind. And then the other one was later on, maybe it was season 2 or 3, but I had a vacation wherein I went to Minnesota to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota, and then but I had invoiced for the previous week or whatever, and then I remember coming back to a post-it note and was something to the effect of, I don't know, however much money as this guy went to see a ball of fucking string. And I was like, yeah, I did do that. I think I have that posted somewhere, but it was good.
I just got done, like I said, talking to Mike and John, and he was showing me one of the scripts that he wrote, and I can't remember the name of the episode, but Mike got pulled from it because it was the episode with Naz where everybody was infatuated with Naz and everybody was trying to win over Naz, and he showed me it was a D minus. Did he grade you guys the same way he graded writers? Did you guys have A's and B's and D minuses, or were you guys completely separate?
No, I don't even know if that was a consistent thing for the writers, but I mean, I guess I wouldn't know. But I think the rating system was based on how many post-it notes were in your board after you got it back. There's certainly no marks or anything. No.
Did you guys, and that was 100% a joke, that wasn't me being serious, but did you guys treat it like a badge of honor? Did you guys try to outdo each other, like, look at the one I got, look at the one I got?
No, you didn't want to get those. The idea is not to get them. That means you're not doing a very good board, I guess. So yeah, no, we didn't compete by that standard. No.
It wouldn't make any sense to you.
No, it's like crash and burn. Right?
Yeah. So when another thing that I found during the research doing you guys, a lot of you guys, especially you, Big Jim, and I can't remember if Joel, I know I asked him when I talked to him, but all of you guys were really, really close to either getting out of art school, getting out of film school like you were. What was it like that first day when you guys finally passed that board test, you get hired for AKA? What was your first day on the job like?
Jeez,
I don't know if you remember that, but
if I can remember it, right? I think I was probably still kind of like not happy to have to go to work. So I was probably like, I don't know, what am I doing? I have to go to work, go on the transit for an hour and a bit to get here. I gotta sit here. But I think it was cool in the sense it was like right away it was like, oh crap, I didn't learn a lot in the school because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I go do this storyboard revision or whatever I had first. I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. Guess I better figure it out. But yeah, I think right away it was like right into the hot water. So sink or swim was evident from the get-go. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. It was good. Looking back, it was good. I think maybe at the time I was like, not so good.
Well, I got to imagine anytime you go and do something new or something for the first time, you get that. I can't remember the analogy, but it's a duck sitting on water. Everything looks calm on the top, but underneath the water, his legs are going a mile a minute. So I got to imagine, like I said, in any situation, especially a creative situation where you're just like, holy fuck, man. I feel, once you got a place, but you're like, man, it doesn't feel like I belong here. It doesn't feel like I deserve to be here type of thing. So I can only imagine.
There's that for sure. For sure, that was a thing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just like, how did I end up here? Like looking around. Am I supposed to be here? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I hope no one notices.
Well, the paychecks are still clearing. I guess I'm doing okay. Do you remember that first moment you might have felt like, oh shit, I do belong here, or oh shit, man, I'm doing a great job? Do you remember that first moment you might have had?
I think when there was a time in season 1 where if you handed in your board early, you'd get the remaining monies allotted to you for that board. And so I did that a couple times. I was like, oh yeah, I like this. I think I should be here. This is where I should be. That went away after season 1, but at the time I was like, I like this.
Was it easier? I don't want to say easier because I just think it's a stupid question, but as the show progressed and as your time drawing something, because obviously when you do something once it's difficult, but when you've done something 10,000 times, it becomes second nature. But did it get progressively easier for you to be inside these characters and draw these characters as the show progressed, or did it get harder because that bar kept getting raised every single season, every single episode?
I think both actually. Because after doing it for so long, the characters did become inherent. Like as I'm boarding or whatever, it's kind of linear, like drawing Eddy doing whatever, and something comes to you at that moment, and you draw it right then and there, and it makes sense that Eddy would do that there. It's not something that was preconceived by the writers or anything, but just like, well, he can't do this portion of activity. He would do this minuscule thing in the middle of that, and kind of throwing those things in, action and dialogue, stuff like that, was inherent, just came. And it wasn't always, it wasn't always right, but for a large part, it just kind of came out. But at the same time, as you say, like, you didn't want to repeat something you already did. So as the seasons progressed, there was a little bit more head scratching, like, oh, did that before. I don't know. So there was a challenge, but also you knew where that was coming from already. So you kind of knew how to adapt to it, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like I said, more you do it, obviously the easier it's going to get it, but the more you do it, you've got more content out there, so you gotta be like, oh man, I gotta be better this time, or I can't do this because I've already done this, so it flexes a different muscle, right? It's almost like your left hand is taking over what you're talking about with drawing instead of your right hand. It's something else to flex, it's something else to get stronger, it's something else to get better. So 100% it makes perfect sense. But as that show progressed, and this is something I always liked asking, and writers, it's a little bit different for characters, right? Because they write these characters, but you guys were writing a lot of the gags, a lot of, obviously not dialogue, but you were writing a lot of the transitions and everything like that that would set up a punchline or a transition into another scene. So when you first got on the show, if you can remember, what was probably your hardest character to draw? Who was your favorite character to draw? And did that change at all as the show progressed?
The hardest characters from the get-go was Jimmy, Casper, and Naz. Naz is tricky because she's a bit skewed in the face, but not in a sense that makes her look skewed. She has a kind of a unique. Well, all the characters did have they're not symmetrical, but Naz was, if you got her a little bit wrong, then she just looked demented. And I got her wrong many a time, so I know. But I think Eddy and Ed were probably my favorite to draw. Kevin too was pretty fun, just because he was kind of different. He had this vulture neck sticking out, which in some shows it kind of went away and it come back and whatever. As the seasons progressed, the board artists would focus in on different things, and some episodes would become more rubber hosey than other ones, and you kind of went through these progressions, and kind of would, as there would be times where we'd be like, let's kind of go back to the model from before, because we've gone so far one way. We're like, and that's natural progression, but it was kind of fun to go back and then go like, oh well, let's try to bring Kevin back to season 1 Kevin. Maybe not the same, drawings, same quality, but bringing some of that energy from where the characters came from, but at the same time bringing it up to where we've progressed to at that point in season 3 or 4 or whatever. So that was pretty interesting to and a challenge for sure.
So with that being said, man, I don't want to say, what was your least favorite thing to draw? Because let's get away from the characters, because I feel like that's the easiest thing to really pick on. I feel like you've probably been asked that thing 1,000 times. But what was your most favorite thing to draw as far as scenery or backgrounds? And what was your least favorite thing to draw when it came to this show? Was there something that was just a pain in the ass every time you had to do it?
I wasn't that good at backgrounds, and that's mostly due to my not putting them in until the last step. but they should have been put in throughout so that your staging is working with your scene. But I would always just kind of board everything kind of roughly. Yeah, he's in the lane, or I don't know where he is. And then later go back in and be like, okay, now I got to figure out how to make these backgrounds work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have like a photocopy of kind of the backgrounds as I was going to try to map out where the character ended up. But had I thought of that at the beginning, then I wouldn't have had all that problem. But just the way I worked, I'll just do the backgrounds later. So that was the thing. And then I didn't really like drawing Kevin's bike for the longest time because it was like this mechanical thing. It was like it always looked weird when I drew it. I think I got the hang of it eventually, but yeah, the bloody bike, that wasn't easy to draw at first, even though it looks deceptively simple.
How come? Was it just you didn't give a shit about his bike, or?
Well, I never, probably up to at that point in my life, maybe I drew a bike once before in my life. I don't know. So I was like, I don't know how to draw a bike. And it always just looked crappy. But anyway, let Korea fix it. They can fix the bike.
I mean, I enjoyed it, man. I couldn't tell that there was anything off about that bike, if you will.
Well, in the storyboard, the bike was awful, and then the talent at Yason Entertainment, they would fix it.
I don't know, man. I think you put a nice base coat, if you will. You put the lines in there. They're like, oh shit, this is what a bike's supposed to look like. We're gonna do exactly what Scott said. So that bike that they made it to post cut or after the edit, man, they fixed it in post. They took your bike, and we're just gonna leave it with that. I want to make sure you get the credit for it.
I don't want the credit for the bike. But I mean, going off of that point though, it was really cool to see how, depending on who storyboarded that episode, like it would be put on model overseas, but you could still tell who drew which episode, who boarded it, because it would come through in the final, even though they're supposed to all look on model at the end of the day. So it was cool. It was kind of like we thought of that as kind of like how you could always tell a Chuck Jones Bugs Bunny from a Bob Clampett Bugs Bunny from a McKimson Bugs Bunny. They're all Bugs Bunny, but when you're watching it as a kid, you're like, oh, that's that Bugs Bunny. That's that Daffy Duck. And so there was a bit of that came through in the boards. That was pretty cool. So we would often just kind of sit in the screening room and go, oh, let's see. That's a Woody Kevin's bike. And then, oh, that's a Big Jim's Kevin's bike. So it was good times.
So out of all of you guys, who do you think drew Kevin's bike the best?
That would be Kevin's. Well, it would probably be Toomey, who had to draw the bike properly.
So with Kevin's bike and the lack thereof, you just didn't feel like you wanted to draw. Was it just the fact that it's just something normal? You wanted to do more of the characters, and it was just something outside of the norm, or?
Yeah, that was it. Probably that's pretty on the head. Like, it's just a normal bike. It was boring. I want to draw this bike.
Now, was there anything that when you're talking about, I could pick out mine, or I could pick out Jim's, or I could pick out insert whoever's? Obviously, everybody's got their different artistic style, their flow, or they have something in there. Was there something signature that you always had to put in? Not so much like panel by panel or board by board, but in a Scott Underwood episode, was there something you always had to have in this episode or in a episode?
I wonder. I don't think so, but that's a good question, because there's probably something that someone could tell from my episodes that exists throughout, but I don't know what it would be. I think that would have to be a question for someone else.
Okay.
Because I didn't put anything on purpose, let's just say. But yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of flair or something I did that was in all of them. Maybe it was the way I drew Kevin's bike.
Oh man, I like it. I wasn't expecting that one, but I enjoy it, man. So speaking of bikes, 'cause we talked about bikes so much, and one of the questions that Big Jim, I always ask, hey man, if you guys could ask anything, or what should I ask this guy, or make sure you bring this up. It always comes up that way. You had a run in with somebody's bike, man. I wonder if you might want to tell that story.
Woody's bike. Woody's bike. So AKA was on the second floor of this building, and I guess Woody had forgot his bike lock that day, and so he stored the bike in the stairwell, and he put the lock on. Well, couldn't put the lock on because he didn't have the key or whatever, but he placed it in such a way that it looked like it was locked, because there was other companies in the building, and maybe they would take the bike. So I saw him do this or whatever, however I knew. And then I went and I moved the bike from floor 2 to floor 3. I put it up on the stairwell on floor 3. And then we were going out for whatever break or lunch or something. Your bike's gone. Someone stole your bike. He's freaking out because it was an expensive bike. Expensive. So he ran outside and he's looking in the alleys. He's looking down the street, runs down the street, runs there and back. Where's my bike? Where am I? He's panicked. And then he comes back inside. The bike is gone. And so I guess I was just howling at that point. And then I said, the bike is upstairs or whatever. Now thinking he would just now join in the fun and laugh along. But instead, he chased me through the alleys of Vancouver, the Vancouver streets, until I was practically vomiting from overexertion. He was none too happy that I did that to his bike. But, it was worth it, I guess.
Hey, man, at the end of the day, if it makes you laugh and it makes everybody else laugh, what's a little bit of vomit here and there from pure exhaustion, right?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was all just pranking each other all the time there. Like the culture, if you want to use that word, was like very much goofing around and joking around, or I'd like bringing these. I had these my mom makes these really good pies, and she make me these pies, and I bring in these pies to share with my fellow AKAians, and like was thought nothing of it that Joel would take the pie and smash it in my face or whatever. This is a pie. Now the pie is ruined. But that's kind of a classic gag, so I guess we can't blame him.
Did you after you felt the pie running down your face, did you get a pie gag in on the Ed Boys? I'm sitting here trying to think of every episode that I've seen, and I can't remember if I've seen a pie.
There's a couple pies, and I think they were in a Woody board where the Eds are like rent-a-clowns.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's pies in that one, but I didn't supply any pie gaggery for that.
Do you remember what kind of pie he hit you with?
Yeah, banana cream pie.
Oh, that's fucking blasphemous right there.
It's a good pie.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Or like, we would have wrestling contests and stuff on Fridays, and I remember like there was a fella there, Jason Surridge, I believe. Anyway, he had skinned his elbow pretty nasty in the wrestling match, and I thought, hey, I know a good thing, and then I took a packet of salt and I just snuck up behind him, and I poured the salt into the pussy wound. He didn't like that all too much, but anyway, that's the kind of thing that would happen. One time, Joel choked me. He was choking me, and I was passing out. I was trying to get his attention, but he thought, "Oh no, that's not a problem." And I don't know. I can't try to remember other violent things. We had the sock and bopper fights. Where's those inflatable punching gloves or whatever? And then well, we just hit so hard that you wouldn't feel the sock and bopper part. You just get punched in the face. So good times. That's the only studio that really was fun in that regard. Now, obviously, some people got punched in the face though, so that's the negative. But all in all, it's good.
I gotta say, right off the bat, you are one of my favorite people I've ever had on here. Just the fact that some of these stories I have heard in like the wrestling matches. I never heard the salt one. I never never heard the banana. Every time I talk to one of you guys, I'm hearing something different. And I got to imagine that the reason that you guys pumped out such an amazing cartoon, and I don't mean to use pumped out like you guys are just saying, fuck it, just push this shit out. But I pumped out means you guys were working at a pretty decent pace, pretty decent clip. But the stuff you guys were putting out is phenomenal. I got to imagine that a lot of that has to do with not only your deadline and the crunch, and then Danny's extremely high bar for every episode, every board, every word, everything that goes in there, because this show was his baby. But you guys had, you know, a real family oriented mindset when you guys were wrestling, playing pranks, smashing pies, stealing bikes, doing this, doing that. I mean, I don't imagine that that really fed into the creativity of not only yourself but the other artists, the other writers, the other crew and cast members. Was this the last time, you know, obviously Sausage Party is something completely different, but is this the last time you were kind of that free? Or has it always been, you know, not to varying degrees, but I mean, has it always been pretty open, I guess, as far as playing pranks?
No, that was the end. That was the end of an era after the Eds.
Do you feel like
And
you killed it?
everywhere else kind of worked. You know, it's a lot more corporate. You can't do stuff. You can't pour salt in a guy's wound or something. You go to HR. You know, so yeah, that's definitely. Some people got a bit of the brunt of some of this nonsense, but definitely it was the last time that much fun I think was had in a studio, at least for what I know. For everyone who worked at AKA, I think would agree that that level of mayhem is unmatched.
When you work in an environment like that, is it easier to get into like a creative flow state? And I want to say flow state because it's such a douchey term, but I mean, is it easier to really get into your craft and really work when it's something like that where you guys work hard, but you play equally as hard as you guys work? So was it a little bit easier as far as jobs go to get into the mindset of drawing these characters?
I think it kind of was a slow build, and it became a necessity. The loud music, the the yelling, the screaming, the you know pratfalls. For for me anyway,
Mhm.
that was like I would never wear headphones or ever tune out. Some people had to, uh, you know, especially people who came later in the game are like, oh, what am I walking into? A den of deg- degradation? You know, they put their headphones on and work. But for me, I really like the loud and the
Yeah.
crazy, and I could work no problem in that environment. And then going to other studios after was harder because it was so quiet and boring, and everyone would put on their headphones, but I still couldn't commit to headphones really. I kind of just want some mayhem going on, but
Yeah.
not didn't really ever happen again. But whatever.
Now, what is your process like? Obviously, you say you've got pens and papers and sketch pads and all that stuff all over the house, man. But when you're sitting down and you've got to get storyboards done for your job, right? You're not just playing around. You're not just, you know, doodling just to pass some time. What is your mindset now? Because obviously a lot of this shit has changed with COVID. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are at home. Very rarely
Yeah.
will you guys ever go anywhere when it comes to any kind of artist studio or anything like that. But so what is it? You just start turning on loud music, you're leaning the lights on, the fans are going, the TV's going, the radio's going, that type of shit? Or are you more relaxed and chilled at this point in your career?
Well, definitely more relaxed these days, working at home and alone. That's really the thing. There's no one to yell with, so I will have like whatever on the computer, whatever music or videos playing. But yeah, there's not a too big a level of insanity at this point. It's just like, all right, I know what to do. I'll put that on. I'll just get to it. Um, so it's possible to do it without the mayhem. But I guess and maybe I couldn't do it the mayhem now. I don't know, but it's definitely a good thing to look back on.
Yeah. Do you got a go-to now that if you're, I don't know what it is, if you guys have the same thing that some writers have where they just can't physically get what's up here on a piece of paper. I got to assume that like, fuck man, I just can't get this character to look how I want it to look. So is there like a go-to routine as far as you go? Like, oh man, if I put on this movie, it's white noise, or if I put on this song or something to just get the creative juices flowing. So do you have a go-to whenever you start feeling blocked up or anything like that?
No,
No?
no, I don't. No,
Man,
I can't
everything.
think of anything. I don't think I have. I don't think I have anything like that. I'll just kind of keep 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 at it till it works, and then probably pass it, and then come back and fix it later, kind of thing.
Now, when your days start, right? So not so much with AKA Studios, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. But when your days start now, right? Are you an early riser when you start, drawing and shit, or do you feel like you do better later hours, crazy hours? I'm gonna stay up for a little while because you hear all these varying stories about how
Yeah.
artists do different things. But how do you do it?
I I used to be very much the late hours, early morning guy. Get most of the good stuff done. I've settled into pretty standard day now.
Mm.
It's because with working remotely, having meetings, there's a meeting 9 a.m., got to be there, meeting throughout the day. All right, I'm there. So I'm there in the regular day now. So there's not much exciting to say about that. It's now the boring hours. I'm in it. I'm in it.
So with your day structured now, obviously, like you said, you're alone most of the time, unless you're doing a meeting face to face type of thing. When it comes to Zoom things like we're doing now, but is it harder for you to? I don't want to say get up and just start drawing and shit because you don't have somebody to talk to or bounce stuff off of whenever you guys are doing it. Obviously, you can just call somebody if you need something. But I
Yeah,
mean, does it feel like it's harder to kind of get into the groove now?
it's a little bit harder. It's definitely a different method because now instead of that back and forth as you're doing it, it's just kind of waiting to see how whatever it is you do gets received. And I've been working a lot in feature film, so it's kind of different anyway because you have the luxury of doing a sequence again and again and again and again, which is usually not the case in TV. So the collaboration kind of comes throughout the process. Like, oh, I did it this way, get some feedback. Okay, I'll do it a different way, get some feedback. And so the sequence kind of keeps changing and morphing into what it's going to become. So the collaboration is more back and forth, like after the fact, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it 100% does. It's like it's always fun to bounce stuff off of people because you start building a foundation, man. You start here, and then by the time you guys are done talking, you kind of ended up here, and you guys can have some kind of general outline of where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and what's going to come along the way, man. So 100%, I get it. So as we start to transition more into what you were doing at AKA, man, when you think of AKA and all the fun you had with all the people that we've mentioned before, man, does any one, I want to say day because it's just stupid, sit there and say, hey, man, what about this day in Tuesday 20 years
Mm.
ago that you remember, man? But when you think of AKA, is there anything that comes right off the bat that you think of like, shit, man, that was that was great? Not so much a story, but like, do you have a feeling when you think about AKA and what gets brought to the front of your mind when you think AKA and the Ed Boys?
I think it's still my favorite job I've ever had. It's my
Yeah.
favorite experience on a animated whatever. So there is that. Like it kind of cemented my own style going forward because my style was still very malleable as I entered, aka kind of grew and changed with the Ed and Eddy aesthetic, and so that became my method. The way of boarding on Ed's is very much different than other shows where you just have a script and you draw what's on the page. So that totally informed my style, my way of working. So definitely it's my favorite thing that I've worked on is Ed, Ed and Eddy for sure.
You know, I mean, like I said, everybody that I've talked to says the same damn thing, man. How fun it was. Like I said, you guys were in such a creative environment, man. It really pushed the artist. Danny was very artist forward, which you don't really hear about. They want everything on paper, especially now. You see some of the scripts that they have now for. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you do this for a living, but some of the scripts, they've got every single detail from the way somebody looks to how they look to how they speak to how their eyebrows are. You
Yeah.
guys had to come up with a good, I don't want to go and overestimate, but like 75 to 85% of the shit going on in this thing, you guys had to come up with, from the gags to the transitions to how they walk to how they, to how they treated each other. I mean, it just goes to show you, if you go and do something so many times, you're gonna be really fucking good at it by the end of the day, man. And that's really what it shows at the end. You guys went out there and drew and drew and drew and drew, and I keep fucking hitting this thing. You guys drew and drew and drew, and you guys came up with some really, really good shit. And when I say really good shit, it's not diminishing anything you've done, man. It's just me trying to encapsulate everything you guys have really done on this show. When it comes down to it, man, if you had to think of one or two episodes that you really loved, whether it's yours or somebody else's that boarded for it, man, what two, maybe three episodes really come to mind?
1 + 1 = Ed was um, definitely in there because that's that's one of the first ones I kind of just was let go. Do your weird stuff. I mean, and then later I probably would have done it differently, after the fact. But at the time, like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Just how weird you could do. Like, so that 1 + 1, and then um, a couple other ones as well. Uh, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are at the moment. Take This Ed and Shove It. That was a lot of fun. And um, there was like a version where it was called Cartoon Network's like, that's too depressing when they're elderly, because I had boarded it and it was pretty depressing. Like in the version that exists now, like Eddy is old and whatever, they can still run around and like freak out on stuff, but in the initial pass, he couldn't run. He was too old.
Yeah.
So he was trying to run and he was struggling with it, and it was very depressing. And like I love doing that, and it was a lot of fun. And I love the way that the episode turned out. But I do recall like the previous version, and even though none of it exists now, like I've looked through my stuff hoping I kept portions of it, but I don't have anything. But that one was a lot of fun, and then just some other one that I can't think of right now was also really important to me.
I really should send you some of this shit before I have you guys on. Cause sitting here, it always feels like I'm sandbagging you guys. Seem like, hey man, you remember 20 years ago when you did this shit? And I don't mean to. It's just like,
No, that's all right.
it's so vivid up here as a kid, man. It's imprinted. I mean, there's there's like seminal moments in your life that you can really call back to, like you said, taking this guy's bike, getting the pie smashed in your face, and other things that happened. And I always like sharing this story, man. So when I was like, I want to say 12 or 13 is when the show started coming out. I had just gotten a cockatiel at this time, right?
Oh yeah.
And cockatiels, man, they mimic everything. And the one thing, and my bird's name was Nacho, because I'm a fat kid. I love food. I love nachos. So, man, hence Nacho the bird, right? So I remember this bird, and every morning at 6 o'clock, Ed, and Eddy would come on. It would start with like, what was it, Speed Racer, and then some other anime show, and then it went straight into Ed, and Eddy when I was getting ready for school.
Okay.
And this little bastard Nacho, in 6 months, learned the entire Ed, and Eddy theme song, right? So for 6 months, he would start with and that's what all he would do. And then he'd eventually get it up and piece. And eventually in 6 months, he had the entire fucking song.
Oh, nice.
It was until 6 months happened. And then I'm in summer, right? So I'm sitting here, I'm out of school, trying to sleep in, right? So whenever you get a bird, man, you put a little blanket over him so he knows it's nighttime, so he goes to sleep and shit. So this little asshole, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't up, stayed up late the night before. He starts whistling Ed, and Eddy without the fucking show being on.
Right.
And this little prick woke me up. And he was the coolest fucking bird in the world, man. It broke my heart when he got away, because we never clipped his wings, so he would fly and shit. So he would get out of the room, and then me and my brother shit a room. So we'd shit on my brother's pillow, and then fly, and then shit, fly, and all this other crazy shit, right? So, but yeah, I had a bird that would whistle the entire Ed, and Eddy theme song. And as we start to do a little bit of a wrap up and wind down, man, there's always some questions that fans ask, and some of them are a little bit more poignant than others, and a lot of them are just really, really dumb, and you get asked them all the time. But I'd be remiss to not ask, and I'm not going to ask you what is under Double D's hat, but if you had to put something under Double D's hat, what would it be?
I was a big proponent, as we were discussing it. I was really going towards, he just has a not it's not the best haircut. No, I didn't. I really wanted to not have, like, a third eyeball or a tentacle or some robotic part. I was vying for, his haircut doesn't look so good, and he gets teased, and that's a big deal as a kid. So to have made a big deal of it, to me, made sense. Like, and then it's kind of like a bit of a letdown to the audience, which I thought was humorous. That it's just it's not a very good haircut, and it's it didn't necessarily, because we had talked about revealing it, right? Which is why it came up. So yeah, I would just give him if it was up to me, I'd be like, he has a not as good haircut.
So does he have a mullet or does he have a rat tail?
No, you're getting too far now. See, that's I'm talking about not too good of a haircut. Like, that was decent. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, right? But then the other kids are like, no, I don't like that, and tease you about it.
It's always fun. I don't know why. As a kid, I never thought about it. I never thought like, what was under Double D's hat? And it wasn't until I posed this question, and then literally the first 7 questions are like, what's under the sock? What's under his hat? What's under his do-rag? Tell me, please, somebody. I've never seen the fascination of like why, people really wanted to know this one. But like I said, I'd be remiss not to ask. And then from a buddy of mine that's actually, have you gotten a chance, or do you ever look at any of the fan art that Ed, and Eddy has kind of inspired with the younger generation of animators?
I do come across it now and again, and I've seen a little bit more now that I guess it's on HBO Max, which we don't get in Canada, so I don't know, but I have been seeing a few more like Ed, and Eddy fan art on the internet lately. So yeah, I have seen some, and some very smutty stuff too. That's very prominent.
Have you gotten a chance to see, there's an animator out of Australia, his name is George Abingdon. He does Peach Creek, which is, I think it's the final year in high school of the Ed Boys and the Cul-de-sac crew. Have you seen that?
I think I have. It rings a bell. And it has like, is that the one that we start and there's like a newspaper blowing in the
Yeah.
wind, Peach Creek Tattler or whatever? Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, the guy's fucking young as shit too, man. I don't even think he's turned 21 yet, or something like that. I had him on the podcast very very early on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
Now,
a great guy.
if I were to, uh, something I might add to, if he could add to it, would be to incorporate into that future realm of the Eds, which some that might be cool is let's see what's happened with Kevin's bike at this point.
I'll make sure
if you're listening, maybe put that in there.
Oh, well, that's I've got a couple questions from him because he messaged me on his way home. He was listening to the Big Jim episode not too long ago. And I always like putting them out there because it's always nice to see somebody that takes something that meant so much to somebody at such a young age and really wants to pay, homage to it, or they want to go out there. Yeah. They want to tell what they feel is the reason that they like this show so much. They want to get their message across using these characters that they hold so tightly. And like I said, he's such a fucking good guy. And what he's doing out there with Peach Creek is really fun because you see when somebody takes something as far as like not their properties, right?
Yeah.
They make something out of somebody else's stuff. And then a lot of times people just do it and they just seem like they spit on it. But this guy's really doing something that's really, really fun. He had a couple questions. And then he said, for storyboard artists and animators, what's your process for pushing, and he put that in quotes, so I'm hoping that you might know what that means, pushing drawings and poses?
Well, I do know what he means. And it's all about that good old line of action that Preston Blair talks about. And once you establish what kind of pose you're doing, and if you want to push that drawing, it's not about now taking the individual portions, not about his arms and his head moving that around, but you look at that line of action and try to push that line of action, make that line of action stronger. So if he's bending over and he's bending over more, or he's adding that little bit more to it and streamlining the pose to fit that line of action, that's getting a really strong pose. Like it's all the pieces are fitting into that line of action. And when you see a pose that's it's not so good, it's usually because there's some element that's sticking out of the line of action, or it's not pointing to where you want your eye to be looking. So that's usually the case for pushing a pose. And then the same goes for expression. Like, the elements of the expression can be incorporated into a line of action that can be pushed further, and in the direction of where you want it to go. So if someone's pointing, then that line of action is really going to be pointing like as an arrow to where. I'm just saying words right now. I'm kind of recycling stuff that I've heard over the years, but I think he should get the gist. I mean, he knows about pushing the poses, so it's just like, okay, what's the method? And that's kind of what I would do. One of the benefits of digital drawing is flopping it and having a look to see if it looks really crappy in a reverse, and you can kind of see what is crappy, and it's often the line of action. Oh, that doesn't look good at all. And the characters will be like skewed or have some sort of demented mutation, and that's where you can fix that.
Yeah, got you. And then the other one, he's like, and another, I watched 2 videos he did years ago, and he stretched out years, tutorials on how to draw Ed and Eddy. Has he ever thought about creating his own YouTube channel covering the basics of drawing cartoons, like the line of action, anatomy, posing, keeping drawings consistent, and etc.
There's that line of action again. Yeah, I have thought about it, and it's just something that is not is a little bit farther back on the burners right now because I'm just
Got a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, got a lot of stuff going on. So trying to add that to the mix would be problematic for getting stuff done. But I do like that idea, and it's something I would like to explore at some point. But I don't know if it's in the cards specifically. But the tricky part about stuff like that is like some of it is just like I don't know the answer. So it's like, okay, how do you do this specific thing? Keeping a character consistent. Okay, today's video, I don't know. I guess you try really hard. I don't know.
That's how you're gonna be #1 artist being followed on fucking YouTube for tips.
It won't have enough length to it to get the clicks.
Nah, man, fuck it. You don't need. It's not about how
clicks.
I was about to say it's not how long it is. I was going to say girth, but that's something completely different. But it's the substance that's in it. It's not so much how long it is. It's the substance.
I get you. Yeah, no, I know. It's a good idea. I like it. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen.
It might one day, man. And like I said, as soon as that happens, you're never going to have to go and draw for an animation studio again. You're going to be doing everything on YouTube. You're going to be self-sufficient. You're like, fuck it. How do I draw this circle? I don't know, man. Just draw a circle and we'll just keep drawing it until we get it right, man. So
that's it. I don't know. It's like called I don't know. I don't know how you do it. I just give it a go. Because I remember those videos I drew. And I don't think I've watched them since that was filmed. I do know what he's talking about, though. I remember them being filmed, but like I remember talking about drawing Eddy, and it was like not a very good Eddy or something. But I was just like kind of spouting off stuff, trying to make it make sense. But I'm like, I don't know what I do. I just draw Eddy. I don't know, just draw. Hey, man, I did talk about line of action. If you ever stumped, if someone asks you a question like on a Zoom meeting or something, they're like, hey, then you just kind of bring up the line of action and then you kind of cover your bases.
Are you a stand-up comedy fan at all?
I like stand-up comedy. I'm not a regular watcher of it, but yeah.
Have you ever seen Bill Burr? Anything from Bill Burr?
Oh yeah, Bill Burr. I like Bill Burr.
I don't know if you remember. He's like I walked into a gun store and she's trying to sell me something. He's like, this shotgun. He's got a good spread. A good spread. So every time I hear line of action, I think of good spread when he's trying to sell the fucking.
Yeah, it's like a keyword. Just put it in.
So we got one from Big Jim.
Oh.
You could ask him about Ed's love of chickens, the origin of Wilfred the Pig, and the time he hit Woody's bike, but we already got to that one. So Ed's love of chickens.
Ed's love of chickens started in what's it called? The episode where they have to trade stuff, and like Kevin he has a thing of sawdust, but he wants them to paint the shed to get the sawdust or whatever. And in that episode, there was something to do with eggs. Eddy wanted to make an omelet or something. Anyway, Ed had to get the eggs. And I'm trying, this is a long time ago. But there was like, okay, it wasn't figured out just a specific Edism to go with it. Like we don't want it to just be like a standard cartoon where they do A to B and then you hopefully laugh. So what character motivation could we bring into it? And I think it was me that did this, but I could be proven wrong because it's so tucked away in the memories. But because I had a affinity for chickens, I thought, well, let's let Ed have that too. And so in that episode, planted the seed of Ed's love for chickens, and it worked. It blew up for Ed, and that became one of his character motivations. His just love for chickens, and it came because I had chickens, and I really loved chickens, and I thought, well, let's put a piece of that, because and that's with everything, like doing cartoons or doing, these aren't my characters, but I'm imbuing them with what I know, and so Ed became a lover of chickens. I'm 98% sure that was my idea, but again, there's a chance that might not be, but I'm pretty sure it is.
So we just added your artistic flair there. You know that, right? I asked you that question earlier. Like, what could you pick out that you put in there that was specifically Scott Underwood? Man, we just figured it out, dude. Because
you can edit this part and put it over there. But yeah, and then it became a bit of an issue. Not really, but it was kind of like a what have we done here? Because it had already been established at that point in the series, like Ed taking out like a fully cooked chicken out of his chair in his room. So then there was a kind of a bit of a weird thing where, like, well, what? Thought he loved chickens. I'm not sure why there's a fully cooked chicken in his chair. But then we're like, oh, maybe Sarah put it there. Yeah, Sarah put it there. And then there's an episode later in season 4, I believe, where he like takes out 4 or 5 of them out of his chair, kind of a nod to that original thing. And but yeah. So that's the chicken's tale.
Chicken origin, if you will.
And then Rolf would have various numbers of chickens and for them to react to. But yeah, his love of chickens.
And then
definitely 98% was me.
We're gonna call it 100%, and that's just that's a Scottism, if you will.
John will probably come. No, I wrote that in the script that he loves chickens, based on my own childhood. He'll say.
Well, I mean, it's completely plausible that John might have had chickens too, but we're gonna say Scott did it, and it's a Scottism.
Let's say it, and then
we'll just put it out.
Proven wrong. There's evidence to the contrary. I'd like to see it.
And then the last thing Big Jim was saying was the origin of Wilfred the Pig.
Well, that episode where Rolf first says the pig's name is Wilfred, if I remember correctly the order. That was one of the couple episodes where there was a dedication at the end of the episode, and that was to my very best friend growing up, a fella by the name of Sean, who we would call Wilfred. That was his middle name, which he did not like to be called. And so that's what we called him. And by we fully incorporated this guy into AKA culture, where he didn't work there by any means, but on the weekends, Friday nights, get Wilfred out and have pizza and drink and do whatever it is we're going to do. So he was right in there and part of the family, if you want to use that term. And so Danny, it was actually Danny's doing, because Danny was also a fan of Sean Wilfred, and I'm sure he was. And unfortunately, he passed away, and so Danny took it on himself to honor Sean, is to give him. And it was funny because we would have called him a pig in real life. So let's give this pig the name of Wilfred, and that pig became Wilfred the Pig, and it just stuck, and it was kind of like an honor, an honorarium for Sean, who was a very big part of my life, but also by extension a part of the AKA family, and so that was a bit of an honor for him. But of course, he never got to see it, because I doubt they play Cartoon Network in the afterlife.
Well, all things aside, man,
It's just Nickelodeon in the afterlife.
It's funny you bring up Nickelodeon. I'll get to that in just a second, but thank you for sharing that story. You didn't have to.
Well, you asked me the question because Jim's a jerk. He's like, yeah, I'll make him uncomfortable. I know what to say. I'll have a question.
Well, right. Like I said, man, you could have completely skipped over it. I appreciate you sharing that with me, man.
No, it's all good. I was myself honored by extension that Danny did that for Sean, and it's still one of the proudest moments of my kind of career, you know. I remember showing Sean's parents that I brought over the VHS and played the tape for them, and then I don't, they are just kind of like, yeah. Oh, so you call my son a pig, eh? Well, great.
Well, nonetheless, man, he'll be immortalized as Wilfred the Pig as time goes on, man. And I don't mean that as a disparaging remark, but it is a beautiful sentiment, no matter how you look at it. That even though he's not here, he's still here. If that makes sense, you know. And like I said, thank you for sharing me. You could have, like I said, you could have completely.
No, I don't mind. He was a part of the AKA. He was at all the AKA parties. He was at all the events. I think I brought him to one, and I made him wear a dress because I'm like, no, I have to bring a date. So he wore a dress. He was very obliging in that regard.
Yeah.
So
who picked up the check that night? Was it you, or was it?
That was all on. I think that was probably all on Danny's tab if it was an AKA party. So that would be good. That'd be good. And I think I bought the rest at Value Village that morning.
Yeah. Well, like I said, thank you for sharing that. So we got a couple more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
Some of these we've really talked to, and some of these are going to get real nerdy. Her name is Gloom Chickadee from Reddit. She wants to know, why was Eddy's yellow tongue changed to green? In season 1, he had a yellow tongue, and the rest of the series he had a green tongue.
I like that question, and I like that question, and I was well aware of that change because it was only to see it better. That was really the only reason, because it wasn't bad that it was yellow, but because his shirt was yellow, it was often you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at here, or the color would pop, or they'd color the tongue, the shirt yellow or something. So just to make it more different and stand out more, that it was a very, to the point, matter of fact thing. And I tried to bring back the yellow tongue in the flashback episode, but it didn't work out for whatever reason, because I was well aware of that, the yellow tongue fiasco. And it works well within their parameters, because their tongues are only that color because of the candy they eat. So I guess in season 1, Eddy's favorite Jawbreaker was the lemon zinger, whereas throughout the rest of his childhood, it was the lime.
Yeah,
gotcha. That's the real answer.
It's always funny seeing some of the questions that people ask, because I looked at it as just entertainment, like my brain does not work where I can sit here and remember a panel of, like, I can remember like panels of comics and stuff like that, or little lines here and there from movies, especially movies. Man, I'm the fucking worst. I can pull up a fucking movie quote or a TV quote out of nowhere for no goddamn reason. My brain worked for math and science. I'd probably be saving somebody from cancer or AIDS or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It works for movies and TV shows and comic books. So I'm pretty much stuck to doing what I do for a living. But nonetheless, man. So she goes a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Why was it decided to change the color of the inside of Eddy's sleeves to purple instead of yellow? In season 1, you can see the inside of his sleeves are yellow like his shirt instead of purple like the ends of his sleeves. After season 1, they changed the inside of his sleeves to be purple.
Excellent question. Excellent. Now, I don't have any in-universe good answers for that. Let's see if I can think of one. But I'm sure that all that happened was when the colorist Bonnie would have been putting the tongue to green for the new model going forward. It was probably just and I don't know this for sure, but it was probably just a thing of like, oh, hey, wait a minute, that would look better if that was purple, so I'll go ahead and fill that in too.
Probably just made it pop, just like the tongue
It
color.
just made it pop better. It just made it look better. But an in-universe answer would be Eddy's brother. His old clothes had the yellow inside of the sleeves. But after season 1, Eddy's mom locked those shirts into Eddy's brother's closet. And so Eddy had no access to them. And the manufacturer of those bowling shirts had now switched to a cheaper fabric, which would absorb the dye from the cuffs and thereby color the inside of the shirt purple.
How often did you get out of trouble because you would just go off the cuff and just start explaining stuff? See, I didn't do it because you seem very, very good at getting out of shit and just coming up with stuff like right off the bat, man.
I've been lucky to get out of a few jams.
Yeah.
So I will say that, but I don't know. I don't know that it's I don't have any good tales about it. It certainly didn't get me out of getting a beat down at the AKA wrestling match. So in fact, I think my because we would just tease constantly, and then there would be people that we would tease, and then at AKA, and then all of a sudden one day I would just get tackled or taken down, deservedly so, right? But yeah, the mouth didn't always help.
And it's funny you bring up Eddy and Eddy's brother and Eddy's clothes, because that was her final part, but she's got one more in between there. And all of these are really about colors, which I really got to go back and watch this stuff a little bit more deeper and look at the background.
I like these kind of nuanced questions. I don't always have the answer, but I do like them. So
yeah, I mean, she went all out. I mean, like I said, she's got like a fucking half-page paragraph here.
Okay.
Is there a reason why the Eds each have a color they wear the most besides their usual colors, and why were those colors chosen for each Ed? Ed wears blue, like his blue pajamas and blue helmet. Double D wears yellow, like his yellow swimming trunks, yellow pajamas, and yellow helmet. And Eddy wears red, like his red swimming trunks and red helmet.
Okay, so the answer is yes, there's a reason. So next question.
And this is the last one from Gloom Chickadee. Was there already a design made for Eddy's brother before Big Picture Show, or was it made while working on Big Picture Show? I know in Ed Pass It On, there was a fake Eddy's brother that was just some of the kids. So I wanted to know if they actually had a completed design for Eddy's brother before Big Picture Show. I think the fake Eddy's brother had the same shirt, but the fake one also looked different than the real one.
Yeah. Yeah, the answer is no, there was not a design for Eddy's brother. And when Corey designed him, he did definitely, use all the clues that had been given in the show to incorporate into the design. But if stuff didn't quite work, like the silhouette of kids looking like the brother, well, like you don't want to stick to your guns on that and then you finally reveal Eddie's brother, and he has the silhouette of Sarah on Jimmy's head. Like that, it's not gonna work. So, um, yeah, like stuff that was planted in the series was incorporated into his design, but not verbatim. He definitely wasn't designed because there was never, until the big picture show, it was never thought that he would ever be revealed. So I think there's like a silhouette of what might be him in a picture on the wall or something. Uh, but that's it. Yeah, yeah, he wasn't designed by then.
Got you. And then we got two here, two here from Jono, and he said, "Ask him about Rita Mcneil," and he told me to Google her, so I did. You already answered the feelings for chickens, so we'll start with Rita Mcneil.
Rita Mcneil is by far one of Canada's most treasured icons. Okay, now she's no longer with us, but she was a singer with incomparable talent. Now, what's the connection? I was really wanted. I was working on a show pitch, uh, even back in the Ed days, obviously, that I wanted a show called Tapeworm Joe versus Rita Mcneil, and um, the idea was there was this tapeworm that wanted to go and live inside of Canada's treasured songstress, Rita Mcneil. And so I would do all my research on Rita, and I had even planned to go and see if I could visit Rita to pitch my idea to her. Unfortunately, she passed away before I could do that. But Rita Mcneil, after studying her so much, just became, you know, uh, just so amazed by her that it became part of part of part of my own history, part of my own artistic history that Rita knows nothing about, and that I'm afraid that show might never get off the ground. But I even did like a little bit of like rudimentary animation for it, character designs, um, stuff like that. Because I thought what the world needs is a show with Canada's treasured songstress, Rita Mcneil, and also a parasitic worm.
That that might be the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. How, with the exception of Rita not hearing it, how far did that get? Like, did you storyboard it completely? Just at least
No, I didn't storyboard it. I kind of made a Bible, like a pitch Bible, and like story synopsis, character designs, and I kind of worked on and off on Tapeworm Joe over the years. So there is a bit of Tapeworm Joe. Like if you go through my social media junk, you'll see him appear here and there. And I'll send you. I think I can send it to you right now over this chat.
Yeah.
Just an image of Tapeworm Joe, just so you know what we're talking about, right? You can edit out the boring part where I'm like scrolling through my files.
No, not at all. We're leaving all of this in. This leads to the mystique, and we're building suspense here, Scott.
Where's the video? Documents.
Who would you have pitched this to if you could have got it off the ground? Who would you have pitched it to as far as years ago?
Nickelodeon did see a version of it.
Really? What were the notes you got back?
The notes were, we don't believe a kid can identify with a parasitic worm.
Oh, fuck.
And so I pitched it a couple other places too. And I hope this I just clicked on something, so if it might interrupt the sound here. But yeah, no, and then I later kind of revamped it after Rita's untimely death to include other characters instead of Rita Mcneil. So that was a thing. And I wouldn't say I've given up on Tapeworm Joe. Like, he might be my legacy character that just comes back at some point.
He's the gift that keeps on giving. I feel like this should be episode 1 of your new YouTube series, Tapeworm Joe.
Well, I'll find the clip and I'll send it to you, and you can, at your discretion, put it in here with this video or not. But I
make sure we hit pause and then we'll put it in there and then we'll pick it back up. My tech guy is very, very good because I am very, very dumb when it comes to anything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Tapeworm Joe. He's a good guy.
It's fantastic. Last two. Two.
Before we continue, since it was Jono that asked about Rita, I feel it's only fair to let you know that aside from Tapeworm Joe, my own parasitic creation, Jono and I had worked on another idea called Leechy, which was about a leech.
That was the next one.
Oh, was that seriously the next question?
I don't know if you can. I'll screenshot it to you and I'll send it to your Instagram. But yeah, he said the Leechy one.
Yeah, we wanted to make a movie where this leech ends up on a fella's
nutsack,
reproductive organs, shall we say, and thus inhibits his libido in such a way that audiences will enjoy it.
Please tell me you pitched that to Disney.
We never got that in front of the mouse, but I think maybe there's still room for Leechy in this current streaming services.
That's episode 2 of your YouTube series that we were talking about earlier. So he has said, ask about Rita Mcneil, and I sent you the screenshot for it. He said, Google her. His feelings for chickens, we answered that one. Leechy the leech. Where buttered toast and sponges come from. Does Ed have a learning disability? His experiences on Sausage Party, and how he came to do a voice was all Jono said.
Why do you have so many questions? You shouldn't be allowed that many. I'll answer maybe one of them. I don't know. The sponges and the buttered toast, not me. So I can't answer that. That must have been someone else. It was probably. I remember there was sponges in the wall or something, but that wasn't my doing. So that question's answered. The other one was what?
Does Ed have a learning disability, and your experiences on Sausage Party and how he came to do a voice? And then he put the little emoji in there. So
the Sausage Party. I just skipped that other one. Sausage Party was a close second of my best jobs. Just because it was so insane. It was just an insane movie, but a really cool experience making it.
Yeah.
A lot of freedom to explore the script and the characters. And ultimately, it is a writer's cartoon. Like, it's not cartoony per se, even though the characters kind of exhibit that cartoony aesthetic. So that part of it is a thing. But how I got to do a voice was often for feature films and to a large part TV productions nowadays. The film is edited with a scratch track So just random people in the office doing the voices because they haven't settled on what the lines are going to be. They're not going to bring in the actors and pay them big money multiple times to do dialogue that's wrong. So I did the scratch track for a lot of the characters in that movie. And long story short, they were received well enough that Conrad Vernon, Greg Tiernan, and Seth Rogen were all like, "Well, let's just use them for the final characters." And not much of a story there. So they're like, "Yeah, let's use them." And then I had to battle the union to actually be able to do that. But at the end of the day, well, because I was not a union participant, and the union rules is it has to be someone in the union doing the voice roles for a mainstream motion picture, I guess. I don't know the nuances, but yeah, so now I had to join the union after that. And so now I'm in the union and I do little bits of voice here and there, but of course drawing is still my main thing. That's how that happened. I even tried, there was a time like I tried out for a voice on Ed and Eddy. Now obviously there was never guest characters to be a voice, but this was like early on. And then yeah, that didn't go well. That was pretty.
You remember who
that was Rolf. It was Rolf.
Really? Yeah. What does Scott Underwood Rolf sound like?
I don't know.
I actually had Peter on. That was the episode I released last week. Fantastic guy, the voice of Rolf.
Oh yeah.
Many other things. He had some of the funniest. Oh shit! I got to plug this thing in. He had some of the funniest voices or stories, excuse me, that I've heard as far as the AKA studios go. And that's kind of where, I don't mean to block you out here. That's kind of where all the, I always like to ask, what's everybody's favorite AKA story? And that kind of came from Peter, because he kind of dovetailed into a whole bunch of different shit from the wrestling matches that would go on and all that other shit. And that's kind of where that came to, man. But we just did an hour and a half, man. I don't know if it went by quick for you, but it went by quick for me. I had fun. I mean, the entire Rita Mcneil story, I hope beyond hope that comes. I mean, you fucking did a voice for Seth Rogen. I'm like, hey, Seth, man, I gotta talk to you. I'm pretty sure he's got Rita up there on his scale as far as, Canadian.
Well, being that Seth is Canadian, he probably, I'm going out on a limb here, he probably values Rita Mcneil as a upstanding Canadian artist.
Well, I tell you what, as soon as this episode drops, and I think I'm going to drop this episode this coming Friday, I'll make sure when I tag everybody in this video, because I always go and say, hey, this is a new video type of thing. I'll make sure I do it to Seth Rogen. He'll never look at it because, who the fuck is this redheaded dude from Florida?
Well, you should probably tag Rita Mcneil as well, because obviously she's not going to see it, but her fans will definitely track.
It will be tagged, and I'll make sure I put in skip to ... so we can sit here and talk about it. But nonetheless, man, this has been a very, very fun time just talking to you, man. This show meant so much to me as a little kid, and it means even more to me as an adult, man. Going back and rewatching a lot of the shit that I had just loved as a child, it just completely solidified the fact of how great this cartoon was, man. And you were such a huge portion, like the names we've mentioned with Jim and Danny and Mike and Jono and everybody else that I could not sit here and list because it added another 30 minutes to it. So what I'm pretty much getting at, Scott, is, man, thank you for your contribution on the show, and thank you for what you continue to do, man. I absolutely loved Sausage Party. Me and my wife have never laughed at a cartoon together, let alone a cartoon about hot dogs and buns fucking. It's an experience being able to talk to you, man. Like I said,
my pleasure. It's been a good time.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Is there anything that, I know I asked this question earlier, but is there anything that you can talk about that you're working towards that we can push traffic towards? Or is there anything that you would like to say to the fans? I always open this up for you guys to sit here and say whatever you want to say, because there are fans out there that absolutely love what you guys do and they don't get the chance to talk to you like I have, or they don't care enough to, reach out to people and really say thank you. So that's why I do it. I said thank you. But is there anything that we can kind of push traffic towards? You working on a book, you working on a new cartoon, you working on something that we can say, hey man, look for this in the fall, look for this in the winter?
Nothing right now, because I'm kind of in the middle of some stuff that I'm not talking about just yet. But as stuff comes up, I'll just kind of mention it on my Instagram or whatever.
Where can they find your Instagram at?
Well, first you go to Instagram, and then it's Scott Diggs, 2 G's, and that's all one word, Scott Diggs. And so I have some stuff coming up that I'll mention on there. It's kind of my own personal projects, but they're almost ready, so I'll announce them there. There's no tapeworm yet.
Fuck.
But he's not out of the picture. He's in the back burner. Yeah.
But like I said, man, it's been fun. Thank you for everything you did for me as a little kid and even as an adult, man. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, this episode will probably come out on Friday, and it's just going to continue the Ed Boys train, man. It's been
awesome.
I can't wait to have you back on down the road when we can actually talk about the shit you're working on. And hopefully by then we'll at least have a full series of Tapeworm Meets Rita or Rita Meets.
Yes.
What would be the working title for that one? What do you think?
Of the show itself?
Yeah. What do you think that name would be?
Well, it was like a wrestling poster. Tapeworm Joe versus Rita Mcneil. So that was the name of the show.
Tapeworm versus Rectum Rita, right? Got it.
No. That's...
But nonetheless, man, he's been Scott. I've been Julian. Meet your fucking heroes, man, because they're fantastic. This has been the What's in My Head podcast, and I'll check you guys later. This podcast was presented by the Epic Sewers Podcast Network, the home of all your pop culture podcast needs, with shows like Epic Tales from the Sewer, the Spoiler Force Podcast, CreatorCon Q&A, Comic Watchers, and the What's in My Head podcast. Follow us on this journey and get down and nerdy as we bring you the best in pop culture.